My name is John Bandy. I am First Sergeant of ABU Company, 1st Battalion, 327th Infantry Regiment. Today is 25 September, and it is the 60th anniversary of the deployment of the 1st Airborne Battle Group, 327th Infantry Regiment to Little Rock, Arkansas. Their mission was to oversee the integration of 9 black African-American students into Central High School, an all-white school. What ended up happening in the state of Arkansas was the governor at the time, Governor Faubus, decided that he was not going to comply with the federal ruling. What he did at the beginning of that school year was enact the National Guard to provide a blockade against what he felt was federal overreach and trying to push an agenda.
Everybody, welcome to NeoUnrealist. Wait a minute, what is this? Who is this jackbooted stormtrooper memorializing that time a president of the United States invoked the Insurrection Act and ordered an entire U.S. Army battle group in the 101st Airborne Division to deploy inside an American city against U.S. citizens on American soil who are exercising their First Amendment constitutional right to protest? Who was this dictatorial tyrant? Who was this undemocratic monster, this would-be Caesar, who sent the might of a paratroop infantry division, armed with their military assault rifles and their bayonets, riding in on their jeeps and their 2.5-ton trucks to enter and occupy, oh my god, a school? A sitting president capturing a local high school by military force, occupying it in defiance of the wishes of the local population and the express refusal of the elected governor of the state of Arkansas. Holy the Republic! Seriously, people, we've heard a lot of nonsense over the past few days about President Trump's recent statement of intent that if state governors can't put an end to the riots in their cities and restore law and order in the wake of the riots that have arisen after the police killing of George Floyd, that he would invoke the Insurrection Act and order the active duty U.S. military to do the job that, as he styles, the weak Democrat governors cannot. Some idiotic news commentators and leftist blue checkmarks on social media, they seem to have the memory of a goldfish when they claim that this is the act of a dictator and that, furthermore, the President of the United States has no power to do this. Not only are they wrong, as you will soon see, they're hypocrites, as this power was used in multiple instances to achieve results that are among the most celebrated events in the history of the United States by the left in general. But for now, let's continue with this primer. Let's watch a little more of this video taken from the Facebook page of the 101st Airborne Division.
What really hits home for me is that I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and I grew up knowing the story of the Little Rock Nine, and as a child, all I knew is that Army soldiers came to town with weapons to walk 9 teenagers into high school. When I became a member of this organization and I started to look into the history of the regiment and I looked into the history of this battalion and I started to learn the history of ABU Company, my company, I was struck with a sense of awe. I get to be a member of this organization. I get to be a member of some of the greatest Americans that have ever lived. The mission was significant because it showed the utmost loyalty and duty and professionalism of the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division. It was a display of the highest commitment of loyalty, duty, honor, and integrity that I believe exists in history today. Being a member of this organization makes me proud to get to say that I'm part of this history and this legacy. Lieutenant Colonel retired Bill Robbins actually got me in contact with the former ABU 7 Sergeant Major retired Bob Press. And I was actually able to contact him and get some of the story of Operation Arkansas.
What was that we just saw there? A U.S. Army division rolling into an American city in its Jeeps, its 2.5-ton truck transports, then dismounting to occupy a public school in defiance of the duly elected local authority. They were marching about in formation, in columns, ready to quell any civil disturbance from the protesters, the local citizens, there at the school. Not only was this legal, it's one of the single most celebrated events in American history in the pantheon of the left. The implementation of the historic Supreme Court decision was at Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, which called for the desegregation of all schools in the United States. No less than the NAACP, after having tried to register 9 black students to attend Little Rock Central High, in Little Rock, Arkansas, they didn't seem to object when these soldiers were used to escort the Little Rock Nine, as they came to be known, going to the school. And make no mistake that although we look back on the people of that time as, especially the left, as evil, black-hearted bigots, in the end, they still are what they were, U.S. citizens protesting a policy of the U.S. federal government that they disagreed with. Sounds very familiar, I think. You see, in the law, it makes no distinction. The First Amendment does not say that you only get First Amendment protection to protest for opinions that won't be deeply unpopular to the people looking back 63 years later. The First Amendment applies to everyone regardless of ideology or opinion. So if the protesters of Little Rock, Arkansas of 1957 could have their protests policed by one of the premier military units in the history of the United States without triggering an end to democracy and the rule of law, somehow I think in 2020, I don't know when this no longer applies. So, but before we go deeper into that, let's just see some more of this video.
The President of the United States put out a directive, and it was the governor of one of his states openly defied his order. And it was not a crazy, off-the-wall order. And a governor, in activating his National Guard to enforce his belief of non-integration, had to be countered. And it was countered in about as forceful a manner as you could do, with as little physical damage done in Little Rock. It just seemed like this would not have happened if he'd have accepted it and used his National Guard to ensure that these children were given the proper education the way they should have. Integration was a part of life, and the necessity of federal troops in that force being necessary to get 9 children to class, even if it took another battle group, it would have been worth it. They took us very seriously, and I think if we'd have went down there and with a company-sized unit, it might not have been taken as seriously as sending an entire battle group and coming down there with fixed bayonets. They knew that we were there to impose the directive from the President of the United States and make sure it was followed. Escorting the children to the classes, to their homes, gave the people of Little Rock a very clear impression that there wasn't going to be any deviation from the order. It wasn't exactly the way I expected to start my tenure with the 101st Airborne Division. I was so proud to be there.
Did you hear that bit of what he said there? Let's go back. Let's play it again.
As sending an entire battle group and coming down there with fixed bayonets, they knew that we were there to impose the directive from the President of the United States and make sure it was followed.
In sending in an entire battle group and coming down there with fixed bayonets, they knew that we were there to impose the directive of the President of the United States and make sure it was followed. My friends, that is as explicit as it gets. They weren't there to ask for the permission of the protesters, if the 9 students could pretty please go to the school. The soldiers of the 101st Airborne were there ultimately to enforce law and order. Those kids were entitled to get their education at the school, and it is no different today. Despite whatever some whacked out Twitter blue checkmark may think, the American people living in cities currently under siege by looters and vandals, they operate operating under the guise of so-called peaceful protesters. The people in those cities are entitled to live and go to work and have their property secured. If the Democrat mayors or governors fail to provide them that basic and fundamental human right to life and property, then it is incumbent on the president to invoke the Insurrection Act and restore that law and order, even over the objections of a fool like Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, strangely enough, has personally done an almost 180-degree flip-flop on this issue in the past day, when suddenly now he claims that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and the New York Police Department are not doing their jobs, and that he has the power to displace the duly elected mayor of the largest city in the United States and order his National Guard in to restore law and order. Interesting.
Early today, I directed 3,000 members of the 7th Infantry and 1,500 Marines to stand by at El Toro Air Station, California. Tonight, at the request of the governor and the mayor, I have committed these troops to help restore order. I am also federalizing the National Guard, and I'm instructing General Colin Powell to place all those troops under a central command. What we saw last night and the night before in Los Angeles is not about civil rights. It's not about the great cause of equality that all Americans must uphold. It's not a message of protest. It's been the brutality of a mob, pure and simple. And let me assure you, I will use whatever force is necessary to restore order. What is going on in LA must and will stop. As your president, I guarantee you this violence will end.
Wait a minute. Who is the dictator here? What the hell is this phenomenon we have, started in the pandemic where President Donald Trump will say something, the left-wing media will immediately erupt into a meltdown, claim he's establishing a dictatorship, that'll result in the end of the republic. 24 hours later, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, he'll come out, and when he sees the polls actually favor what Trump proposed, then, in spite of the reaction of Twitter blue checkmarks, and then he'll come out and advocate for the same exact thing, and then the left-wing media will twist itself into a pretzel to claim that it's suddenly okay.
The NYPD and the mayor did not do their job last night. I believe that. Second, you have 38,000 NYPD people. It is the largest police department in the United States of America. Use 38,000 people and protect property. Use the police, protect property and people. Look at the videos. It was a disgrace. I believe that. I believe the mayor underestimates the scope of the problem. I think he underestimates the duration of the problem. And I don't think they've used enough police to address the situation, because it's inarguable, but that it was not addressed last night, right? So, facts, okay? This is a glass of water. This is not a glass of milk. It's a fact. There's still facts in life. What happened in New York City was inexcusable. Well, the governor should use the National Guard in New York City. I've offered the National Guard. The mayor has said he can handle it with the NYPD. My option is to displace the mayor of New York City and bring in the National Guard as the governor in a state of emergency and basically take over. You would have to take over the mayor's job. You'd have to displace the mayor.
You know, the Overton window shifts pretty fast when the polls come out and show that by a margin of 2-1, the public is in favor of using the active duty military to restore law and order to the cities of the United States. You know, when worded only to say use National Guard troops, that support is over 70%. But so it's even worse than that. So basically, it's not only not controversial, this is overwhelmingly the public's favored solution by an extremely wide margin. So even a majority of Democrats in that poll are in favor of sending in the military to quell the violence and the looting. This is even unprecedented in the modern context, people. Many of you're probably too young to remember it well, or maybe you weren't even born yet. But the 1992 LA riot over the police beating of Rodney King were only brought to an end when then President George H.W. Bush, when he invoked the Insurrection Act and ordered the 7th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army and the 1st Marine Division of the United States Marine Corps to enter Los Angeles, including, I shit you not, the 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion of the U.S. Marine Corps, rolling into LA inside LAV-25 armored recon vehicles. You know, the last time I checked, that gun that you see sticking out of the turret, that's an M242 Bushmaster 25mm chain gun. So don't tell me that Trump talking about sending in the U.S. military to end rioting over police brutality in a U.S. city is unprecedented and way out there. It was done by a president who was still alive about a year and a half ago. I think Bush died at the end of 2018, I think in November, right? It was done by President H.W. Bush, and I think I made my point. The next time that some outraged Twitter blue checkmark spouts some nonsense about Trump not having the power to send in the military to put down a riot, play him that video of Bush 41 doing just that in response to the Rodney King riot. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor. Hit like for this video. Leave a comment below, share it, mash down the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel, and click on that notification bell beside it, and put it on the all setting, keep up with the newer content. If you want to contribute directly to the channel, and you want to toss your hard-earned dollars into the tip jar, follow links below to Patreon, Subscribestar, or PayPal. Or if you watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. But most importantly, thanks for watching.